Alena, we will start with you. We'll have 10 minutes. So the goal of our attendees want to know what is actually UkraineInvest is doing to attract or help foreign companies into Ukraine. What Mark and I have been dealing with for the last 2 years. We speak with lots of foreign businesses who are interested. What actually is going on in Ukraine? And we know them through our company because we provide a lot of research for those companies that want to understand the investment environment. And there are always questions rising. Is it still corruption? What about the government? What is actually government is doing to help us, if we as a business come in to Ukraine? What is actually the benefits to come to UkraineInvest during the war? Why we have to do that if, for example, why I have to take a risk making 12, 13% a year of return when I can do with huge risk, when I can do 10% return in my own country. So we want to understand what the incentives UkraineInvest providing and what you can help investors with.
Andrew, dear Mark, many thanks for the invitation of our institution to be here today. I want to say hello, and I am happy to be here today and represent my institution in order to provide brief explanation what kind of services we can provide to the potential investors and how we can be useful for them. Unfortunately, our acting head, Mr. Melnichenko, he is not able to be here with us today according to his health condition. So today I will take some of your time to provide you, I hope, useful information. My name is Alena Sumina. I led legal department at UkraineInvest. I joined my team 2 years ago as a senior legal expert and then become at the head of the legal department. Notwithstanding with the external circumstances and war issues, we continue to provide support to the investors. We try to retain them in our country and contribute significant efforts to attract new companies, local and foreign, to provide here in Ukraine the investments, the new technologies and opportunities for our country to be more and more economically developed. Foreign business now is present in Ukraine, as well as we provide support to the plenty of potential investors which consider Ukraine as a location for their production facility or has already decided to start the construction of their production sites. Idea to set government office was firstly introduced in 2016 in the form of consulting body within the framework of the Ukrainian government. In 2018, our office was reincorporated in the separate independent agency with own team and own substance under the subordination of the Cabinet of the Ministers of Ukraine. Since that time, UkraineInvest has provided support to the hundreds of local and foreign companies in the form of analytical and legal consultancy service, mediation with the government agencies, establishing partnership, and else. We work within the framework of the synergy with the Cabinet of the Ministers of Ukraine as a central executive body and with the Ministry of Economy, which plays a key role in developing investment policy of Ukraine. At an investment promotion office, we can provide potential investors with the following type of the assistance. And I want to emphasize that this assistance is provided on the free of charge basis to the potential investors. The first, this is information and advisory support. We can provide you with legal and analytical information overview regarding the field and sector in which you want to implement your investment project. Also, we can help you to find and select suitable land plot. Also, we can help you to find the local subcontractors which will provide you with the technical or legal due diligence regarding this land plot and as well as some environmental due diligence. Also, we navigate within the legal and regulatory framework, provide relevant information of applicable legal framework as well as required permits and licenses, which is needed to be obtained within the implementation of the investment project. of course, we will introduce you with the access to the possible incentives which Ukrainian government can provide you as the potential investors, such as some kind of tax exemptions, compensations from the state budget, and else kind of supports. Also, we can help you with a local network and partnership facilitation. For example, we will provide you overview of the relevant subcontractors on the market, such as legal and consulting firms, maybe some construction firms, and else. We can establish you a meeting with the government and local authorities, as well as we will facilitate communication with the K-Business Association, which will be interesting for you. Also, we will provide advocacy on behalf of investors to solve any challenges that may come up with the government agencies. And in the end, of course, it is very important to provide aftercare service. If investors will face with some problems with some government authorities, for example, maybe some tax issues or custom issues, of course, UkraineInvest will be involved in this process and defend your interests towards these authorities. Also, I need to emphasize that in 2021, UkraineInvest received specific mandate and exclusive to represent and provide assistance within the investment incentive program, under which big investors aim to construct production facilities in Ukraine with firstly 20 million euro of capex, and then it was reduced to 12 million of euro, and receive special tax exemptions and compensations from the government side under this special type of the investment agreement signed with the Cabinet of the Ministers of Ukraine. The law on state support of investment projects with significant investments was introduced in 2021 according to the initiative of the President of Ukraine and is one of the key investment attraction instruments. Unfortunately, according to the VAR, first projects were postponed with its implementation. In 2023, important changes were introduced in the provisions of this law, and in 2024, we finally received two first signed special investment agreements, totally over 95 million euro of capex, and now we are assisting in the preparation of approximately 30 projects with the amount of 3+ billion euro, which aimed to apply for this program. 2025 promises to be more productive. We expect maybe 5-6 applications in the first half of the year, which is aimed to conclude special investment agreement with the government, particularly in the processing industry fields, transport and logistics, and one project we also have in the mining industry. Here on the slide, you can see the list of the eligible industries which is covered by the law. For example, you can see there the processing industry, the biogas and biomethane, electronic communication, extraction, also projects within the framework of education, R&D centers, healthcare also can be covered by this law. I want to also pay your attention that the energy sector is absent here, but we know that any other type of incentives also can be provided to the projects in this field, and according to the plans of our government, till 2026, it is planned to construct it and to funding production facilities in of the energy plants with the capacity, remember, 4,000 gigawatts. Also, on the next slide, you can see the key requirements to the projects within our law. The first is this project should be at least 12 million euro capex, it should create at least 10+ of new jobs. The project implementation period should be less than 5 years since the signing of the special investment agreement, and it should expect construction or modernization. Also, I need to emphasize that the project should be implemented of the separate special vehicle company. It is very important. Project should have its separate balance sheet. It relates to the process of the control and monitoring of, by the Ukrainian government.
Can we get, sorry, so right now, by the way, we can share these slides with you. We can share the information of the UkraineInvest team. So this is great information. Can we get to the point like, all right, I'm the foreign investor. I came to your office. What you can help me with? Just, we like the practical steps. What you can help me. I came and I'm talking about, all right, I want to invest $20 million, for example, in the construction industry. What you can help me with? And what incentives you can, like, because we understand we have to convince foreign investors to come to Ukraine and they want to see the incentives.
Let's see the final slide. I will explain what kind of incentives the investor can receive. Yes, and then we will talk about the roadmap, how we can support investor, okay? So here is the list of the possible incentives for the investors. I will try to be briefly. The first is corporate income tax exemptions, then exemptions from the value-added tax for the importing new equipment. Also, investor can receive compensation from the state budget for the build, engineering and transport infrastructure, and also compensations for the cost of connections to such infrastructure. The type of the tax exemptions related to the land issues is reduced land tax rates or exemption from the land tax, as well as if you want to lease land plot, you can receive it under the special investment agreement without auction. And the last form of state support is exemptions from the compensations for the losses of forestry production. It is very interesting and important for the projects which want to occupy some part of the forestry lands. So,
when in regards to up to 30% capex.
Yeah. And the low part of the slide is not covered yet. The total amount of the state support should be less than 30% of the capex of the project. It means that, for example, if you want to implement project with the capex 100 million euros, you can receive in the form of incentives and compensations up to 30 million euros.
But what depends, am I going to get 10% or I'm going to get 25% out of $100 million? That's a huge difference. What's the requirements? What's the requirements to get all full 30%? So how you identify how much capex will be paid by the government of Ukraine?
It's by the choice of the investor. They have upper limit, 30%, and they can do within this limit. If you want 30%, you can apply for the 30%.
But you can apply, but doesn't mean the investor is going to get this 30%?
It is the subject of the assessment of the project.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was interested, how the government assess how much we're going to give this guy, 10% or 50% of return. Ah, got it. So, no, understood. Yeah, so first of all, again, we can share the slides. It's interesting because I knew CEO of UkraineInvest previously, two UkraineInvest CEOs, and the recent one, Alexander, he's very helpful. You call them, they're happy to meet with you, they talk to you. I mean, I cannot tell you that I went through the whole process, but at least they keep their doors open because I had to deal with previous UkraineInvest CEOs and they were not as helpful. So let me get to next to Igor and we will get to the questions. So Igor, you've been since 2014, you went through all types of interesting things in this country. So can you tell me, what is the investment environment compared to, I would say, 2022? Let's forget about what was happening before the war. 2022, we spoke with a couple of the companies, including Dragon Capital, and they said at the end of 2022, we started opening our doors to investments. We started looking at the investment opportunities in Ukraine. So can you tell us what has happened since the end of 2022 from your point of view and what is happening right now? Will there be reconstruction of Ukraine? Will there be, I mean, we understand this, it depends on a lot of things. What's your view on things, how the things are going for the investment environment in Ukraine?
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for organizers. If you may allow me, like 2 minutes, I'll just introduce myself to so that people would understand what I'm doing. Actually, I'm around since 1997. I'm one of the veterans here on this market. Like I started in the financial market or the stock market at the time when it did exist. Not anymore, but not. So I went through all these governments. I went through all these crises, and I'm happy to be here in the country, by the way. You were mentioning 21, right? What happened in the last three years? By the way, I'm invested in a number of industries so far. For those who live in Kiev or who visit Kiev often, you may know Dobrobut. So I'm one of the shareholders, one of the biggest shareholders there, and one of the first shareholders who bought it, this company in 2014. And also, when I'm also an investor into construction material business. Heidelberg Cement left the market in 2019. This is one of the biggest global cement producers in the country. So I bought, along with my partners, I bought all the assets which they had in Ukraine. And then after that, we also bought Strabag. Those who travel across Europe, across everywhere, like every single airport, bridge, roads are being built by Strabag. Unfortunately, they left. They all left. 3 weeks ago, I completed the transaction. I acquired the biggest gas pipe drilling company, like the gas drilling rigs from the Chinese. They also left, unfortunately. I'm invested in energy sector. Unfortunately, Russians have destroyed 9 gigawatt capacity of generating producing capacity, which needs to be substituted somehow. So along with my partners, one of them is Andrei Kobolev, by the way, who used to run the biggest Ukrainian company, Naftogaz Ukraine, in the past. So we entered this market and we completed, the first project. It's under completion now. 50 megawatt by 2 hours. So it's equivalent of 100 megawatt capacity of storage, battery storage. It's relatively not a big scene, but it's a 33 million euro capex. When we discussed this project, by the way, we never thought that we would show up in your office. So sorry for that. So the energy sector is a premium market, and it's going to be the premium market for the next 4 or 5 years in terms of pricing. The price which we pay for electricity is not less than what consumers in Eastern Europe would pay, or even in some of the countries in Western Europe. 2 of those industries, which I named, I'm invested in. I just entered as late as late 2024. So recently, like months ago, I would say. And of course, the environment is tough. And of course, I do not believe in any significant Western international investment in the country. Due to a number of reasons. First, if it's a financial investors, they all have the professionals investment committees, and anyone sitting in those professional investment committees would not allow any investment into Ukraine. I mean, on the boards of those committees. Just simply for prudence reasons. Unfortunately, Ukraine is not the country with an investment grade so far. The investments which we saw in the last year, there are just exceptions. For example, the telecom business, a huge one, $600 million. That was done by not a professional investor, by the way, but by a private entrepreneur who combines the CEO and the chairman of the board positions, at the same time. So, himself, he took the decision. And by the way, that investment was fully financed by debt, which is also, a nice story to tell. not a cent of that, whatever, $600 million came to Ukraine. So like all the settlements are made offshore. So this is one reason. Another reason, if you take any more or less complicated or big company with the supervisory board, they also have this, members of the supervisory board which have the prudence duty to their shareholders, and they would not let anyone to complete any M&A transaction in the country. Well, because of the reasons we understand. So all this money, tens or maybe sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars, what we operate in the last 6 months, it was just money of my own money, people whom I know here, well-known businessmen, or those who originate from the countries. For those who understand these risks. Having said that, still, tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars, at wartime, with all these risks, it's still a big investment. So, just not to take too much of our time answering your question, I think Ukraine now is a combination, is a place, where two different forces are actually colliding. So one of those is like, no, we don't want to deal with Ukraine, corruption, the government is not efficient, war, military risks and stuff like this. And then the second, of course, like, when you, investment is always a sort of equation of two things. One is the risk and the second is return. So, well, that's why we're here. We're here for returns. In times of high risks and high volatility, we're here. So, well, that's why. And I think it's currently, Ukraine now is a perfect match of those two. And of course, you take a look at as a benchmark, you take a look at the yields of the Ukrainian Eurobonds, which are yielding 50%. So 50% is something which any reasonable investor would be aiming at. So it means that any of your investment should be paid back in 2 years, 3 maximum. However, having said that, I see many companies due to currency controls, and you guys represent, well, some of you represent international businesses here, better than I. Well, you cannot take out the dividends from here. So in the last 2 years. We see the formation of local investors, big ones, big institutions owned by foreigners, by foreign shareholders. Sometimes it's even public companies in Western exchanges. Who invest hryvnia locally, just not because they are happy with those investments, just because they look at these investments as a currency hedge. Yeah. So like you make your money in hryvnias, billions, I don't know, hundreds, millions, tens of billions of hryvnias. Then you cannot do anything. You cannot distribute dividends. You cannot take out money out of this. So what you do is you invest into local dollar-denominated bonds, which are yielding 3-4%, or you become a real estate investor, a land investor, and stuff like this. And plus, of course, it's a time to reinvest this money into personal efficiencies. So, you had the bottlenecks. You see, you're a dollar invested or hryvnia invested in extending your capacity would pay you back in 3-4 years. That's fine, because 25-30% yield on your investment in the situation when you already came through the most risky stage, which is in the past when you acquired this business or build up this business from scratch. It could work. So we see different combination of movements. So some are leaving the country because of a number of reasons. Some are expanding local businesses, and all the local businesses whom I know, I think they believe it's a perfect, it's the best time ever. Like $40 billion of international aid. It's not non-military aid, which has been popped into the macro finances, to support the budget. It's a big money. It's fucking big money. So and this big money has been has been distributed across different sectors. Consumption. Well, you cannot buy expensive cars. You need to wait. I don't know, 4 or 6 months, just simply because the people are queuing for that. So in this way or another, still this money is is back and it's fueling the economy. So this is what is happening in my view.
Yeah. So the thing is, for example, what we see, and when we speak, we get lots of questions like this. Oh, other foreign money coming into Ukraine, and you probably heard of Chicago Atlantic. They came here, they were aggressive. They were looking for investments, and now Chicago Atlantic disappeared. So what we
until you lost your money. Yeah.
Yeah. So what we see actually, people asking who is investing, who is not, and we used to differentiate. Oh, there is the local investors, and these are foreign investors. But we do it differently now. So we talk about the businesses who are already in Ukraine, and the businesses who are not in Ukraine. We even see the foreign companies keep reinvesting money for the reasons you name, because they cannot withdraw the money, they cannot pay the dividends. So in order to keep the money working, so they keep investing in some, for example, Nestlé was working, Nestlé was reinvesting, Yusk is reinvesting, and retail is doing very well, but because of the money coming into the system and they cannot withdraw the money. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I agree, and yeah, of course, this is one of the reasons which I mentioned that people still invest. But for example, I can give you another example. CRH, it's my home cement business, I would say. CRH,
we just visited their plant last week.
Yeah, they're beautiful company. CRH, one of the biggest cement players, global cement players, but their competition, Dikirchov in Ukraine. So it's not about paying, settling this this transaction agreement. They paid it offshore, between their relative U.S. or European-based banks. This is which shows an intention to increase the presence, to fight for the market share.
Right.
So still 30 million, whatever, 22 million, different estimation, how many people will live in Ukraine after the war ends. So anyways, $30 million people, it's a big market. So everyone wants to still compete for this market share. And this is worth something, $100 million transaction, by the way. So it's big money.
Yeah, they bought 2 cement plants, I believe, right? From the Italian cement?
From Dikirchov, yeah.
Dikirchov. So I believe they increased the share market to 15% or something.
I think they go up to 35, maybe 40% market share.
Yeah, but beautiful company for sure. And actually, we just met with them recently, and their thoughts on that's what they said. We still see lots of potential, and we're still bullish on reconstruction of Ukraine. We don't know how big the reconstruction will be, but they're still competing for this market. And when people talking about, so many people left the market, but look at the average size of European country. Some of them 7-8 million people, and we're talking about 30 million people in Ukraine.
Yeah, by the way, sorry for interrupting. There is another observation. If you look at the publicly traded company, Ukrainian publicly traded company, they all double, triple, the X5, X10 in the last 2 months. Basically, when Trump in the U.S. came to power, a lot of people want to, make a bet on those slogans which he's throwing around, end of the war, reconstruction, new country, whatever. And I saw one of my best friends who used to run one of the biggest investment fund from the U.S. in the past. He recently visited the country, visited my office, and said, okay, if I want to put a bet, if I want to invest, put a bet on those slogans, reconstruction and the war, and what we hear from the TV sets. I don't have any instrument to do that. So I can go and go to gambling, whatever, put a bet there. but there is no publicly traded stuff which I can buy for like I don't know, $1 million, $5 million. The biggest Ukrainian company, which is in London Stock Exchange, is MHP. The average volume would be $100,000 to $200,000 per day. It's peanuts, you know. Yeah. The company which is listed on the Warsaw Stock Exchange from the old 2006 or 2007, I already forgot the name, with only one asset, the coal mine in Lugansk Oblast, which was actually occupied back in 2014. The stock price went up by 10 times. You know, it's incredible. I do not even remember the name. Well, maybe that was me who brought it to the IPO there. But so you can see the sort of a sentiment which we feel from the broad. I have to tell you, it's not a professional investors yet. So it's the most risky, the most those who are able to take the most entrepreneurial investors. But they want to take this risk, and now my job is to bring together, put together investable instrument, and I'll tell you a small secret. By the way, I'm working on a deal to bring a Ukrainian company to U.S. stock exchange in the U.S. So by the end of this year, I don't know if the war will end or not. Regardless of that, we'll be ready to hit the market. I'm pretty much sure we'll raise the first post-war money on the public markets in the U.S. So I'm pretty confident in that.
Yeah, thank you for that. I will get back to you, Igor. Dmytro, can you tell me? All right, Vodafone. Tell me what's the latest updates with Vodafone. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, I believe the companies like Vodafone can actually tell how many people live in certain regions. Can you?
Yes, we can. Good. Thank you for the question. We really can do that with some level of approximation, of course, but it's not a big secret. Igor already mentioned some numbers. We tend to believe that the current number of the, let's say, constant inhabitants in Ukraine is around 30-something million. It might depends on the season, because usually during the summer vacation it might be a bit more, and during the autumn season especially some kids with their mother, they live in the country, and the total number of inhabitants a bit less. But what we could say about our business, we start operating in the country more than 30 years ago. So we are here from the very beginning, almost since the independence of the country, and we never stop investing in the country, because our type of our business is quite capex intensive. Yeah, we need to invest at least 15-20% of our revenue each year just to be on the same pace of the development. Because the technology evolution is not stop on one place. We went through the huge evolution of the technology since the simple voice call, and now the data consumption is leading the market. And actually, I have one question to the audience. Maybe you can make your assumption. We already know what the population of the country, due to a number of reasons, some migration and so on, let's say shrink for 10 million. Yeah. And let's say 25%. And our subscriber base is also reflect not maybe the same dynamic, but quite close to that 25%. What is your assumption? How did that data consumption change since the war? If we make total volume of data traffic generated by all users and compare it with the current situation? Igor has a guess. Yes, it's increased, but how many times?
2-3 times?
Not 4, but more than, let's say, 2.5. Yeah? So that's simply to serve the traffic. We need to invest a quite, let's say, substantial amount of money in the capacity. And since war, it's not only a question of the capacity. We also need to rethink our network design, because there is a huge migration of the population in the country. Many people have been internally displaced, especially from the eastern and south part of Ukraine. They move west and we need to rethink how our network have been constructed, where we have a commutation center, where we have our capacity, and that's require a lot of investment from our side. Actually, if it's not a big secret, we can, let's say, disclose the number which we invest during the last 3 years. The total number of investment which we made in the country would be roughly slightly less than 400 million USD. Science war. This is in the war condition. And moreover, during that year, we would continue to invest, and that would be absolutely highest number in decade. During this year, we are committed to invest more than 8 billion hryvnia in the network capacity, in the new technology, in the resistance of the telecom network in Ukraine, because the communication itself, it's not just communication, it's something who is really saving the life of people in the war condition, especially if you are close to the front line. Not only to the front line, if you are, let's say, caused by some missile attack or whatever, and you are under the destroyed building, and your phone is only one way you can communicate with the external world. And that's really become important. That's why we are committed to keep our network resistance, even in such hard condition, especially in the blackouts, which make unprecedented pressure on the telecom network in Ukraine. But this is our job. This is what we have to do.
Dmytro, question. We know that quite a few million people left the country. Did you lose a lot of subscribers?
Yeah, the most, let's say, challenging period was, as for all business in Ukraine, probably was the first half of 2022. During that period, we observed a significant decrease of our subscriber base. It's not a big secret, but we was quite, let's say, our stronghold was in the western part of eastern part of Ukraine and the south, yeah. And we observed what many people was forced to leave the country. Mm-hmm. In Russia. We see their movement, let's say, part of them are unfortunately stay in Russia, but many people are returned to Ukraine or went to the Western Europe through the difficult road, through the Belarus, through the Poland, and return to the territory. But let's say, if you would like me to be more precise, at the beginning of war, we lost almost 3 million of subscribers, which is roughly 20% of our subscriber base, but we return on track in subscriber base growing back in 2023. In size, that time, we would able to increase our base on, let's say, 5%. Mm-hmm. So that's the good sign and good development.
So is that because people return, or you got the new customers, you advertise more, the marketing?
This is a number of reasons which explain it, such growth. Some, of course, returning of some people is one of them, but another one, what in the condition of the blackouts, when your, let's say, own network might be not available, many people buy second SIM card just to keep it as an alternative way of communication. That's why the total number of SIM cards in market increase.
Can you, I don't know, it's maybe a not related question, but I just want to understand, because look, we look at the different businesses. For example, we look at the retail. Retail has been doing very well since end of, I would say, beginning 2023. We see the numbers, and everyone is talking about, guys, why we would invest in Ukraine? There is no people, but we see the sales of retail going up significantly, and especially the trend is going up. We're talking about ATB, we're talking about EVA, we're talking about other businesses. So if people left, why consumption becomes so high? My question is, if you guys look at how many people in the regions, because I have actually questions being asked, what about Zhytomyr region? Do you have enough people to buy, for example, real estate? How many people there? What's the best way to evaluate? Everyone says, oh, so many people left. When in Kyiv, we can't move. The traffic starts from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. So do you see any movement in the regions that are not occupied if the population maybe moved toward this way? and population at least not decrease? Do we have any information on that?
So we monitor the situation regularly because we need to plan our network development based on such information, because how many customers you will have, you need to, let's say, ensure that they have enough capacity to make the calls or data consumption available. So speaking about what I could say, I can disclose one simple number. If we're speaking about West region, was everything what is on the right bank of the Dnipro River, the population here increased based on our estimation on 4.3, 4.5 million.
Okay.
This is the number which we have. And there is a different region. Of course, there is some safe harbor, like Zakarpattia or whatever. Yeah,
right.
They have double increase in the population based on.
And this is why I'm asking, because, for example, everyone is completely right. People left, and investors and foreigners who come, they don't see the information. I mean, they don't have the information. They were like, what is happening? And I'm not talking about how many people left, how many people migrated, how many people immigrated, but I'm always talking about how many people live per square meter on a certain region. So if we talk about, I'm talking about, like, for example, if we had, for example, 1 million people living in that region, is it the same number or less? Because why for example, they're talking about investing in certain assets and they want to make sure if the population is there. Because they want to invest in the western part of Ukraine. But when we talk about Zhytomyr, we're talking about Rivne, we're talking about Kyiv, we're talking about, not really Kharkiv, I would say Zaporizhia. They want to see if the people are there, if the consumption, if the demand is there.
I would say the answer is would be following. So if we speak about, I would disclose some number. If we speak about Kyiv city itself, so the total number of subscribers which we have here in the city, if we compare, let's say, February 2022 with March 2025, yeah, the total number of subscribers would increase around 450, 500,000 customers, subscribers in Kyiv.
Okay.
Yeah. Because the number of people who is living in Kyiv, it's but what surprised me a lot, when we look at the Kharkiv who is surviving on the daily, let's say, missile and drone attacks, they still have, if we speak about our network itself in the Kharkiv region, we still have 800,000 subscribers here, which is absolutely.
But how many was it?
It was around 1 million. So this is the 20%.
Not a drastic, drastic drop.
It decreased at the beginning of war, but it's since 2023 the base in Kharkiv remains stable, which is quite promising sound for the business. Despite all these attacks, despite all this. Let's say, dangerous situation and condition with the lack of electricity, blah, 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 but still lots of people live here on the constant basis.
Interesting fact, maybe Igor, you know this. There was I believe, automotive company actually bought a building in Kharkiv, invested in somewhere like close to the center. They purchased that building for the real estate development in the future. And they said it was only $500,000. When the war is over, there's going to be no opportunities like this. And I was like, look, if it's 5 minutes from the center of Kharkiv, definitely it is. But that's the question we usually receive. I'm sharing the inside information, what actually the foreign investors are looking for. We're talking about, oh, we're not going to do this because there's no people. And we're talking about, look, according to certain numbers, Zhytomyr region had 265,000 people, 300,000 left, but 310,000 people got back. So that's why I always get back to the point that, look, let's not look at the whole population. Let's talk about what's the concentration of people in a certain, in a square meter in a certain region. Then it can be probably better to evaluate the potential of a certain region.
We have such kind of the service as big data analytic. We would be happy to provide that information to, of course, who is interested.
Yeah, so no, definitely is going to be interesting. Welcome. Because we constantly this information is constantly being requested.
We're very interested to publish such data to our potential investors, of course.
Igor, question. You talk about you guys invested so much money in the energy industry, but when we speak with our clients, they're talking about, yes, we understand that at some point when Ukraine became a European Union member, the prices will definitely get adjusted, and it's opportunity right now to invest in an energy sector, especially after more than half of energy capacity of Ukraine has been destroyed. However, there is a problem. If, for example, guaranteed buyer, it still doesn't pay all the money that it owes to energy producers. What's your intake on that? For example, you guys invest in any energy. If this is not a private company that maybe can pay you directly, what happens, in that case? Because lots of companies who don't have the financial cushion, they have problems with receiving the money for the energy producers.
That's a good question, by the way. Thanks. We have two types of clients. One is the pure market, so we don't bother ourselves with government paying, not paying, whatever. Those non-payables do not bother us at all. So we just sell it to the market, and the market pays us, the next day. And the second is one of those projects we went to tender with Ukreinenergo, which is a state-run company, and we have this 5-year offtake contract with them. And of course, I have to tell you, we would not go there if we did not have a insurance coverage for political risk and non-payment risk. So. I think we're covered, but this is a good question because it's most of the potential investors, if not such a guarantee, which is really rare, it's a no-go for them, even local investors. So we are locals, seeking the Western guarantee for such an investment. Yeah. So
what's like another question. When we understand, we see what's the energy price in Ukraine and the cost of production of electricity and how much we're selling it, and at the same time, European countries, the price way higher. So, and Europe is very afraid of Ukraine becoming a part of European Union because our price is way lower and the cost of production electricity in Europe is way higher, and they afraid that when we fully enter the market, there is going to be some conflict, not an interest, but still. Any comments on that?
It's pretty simple. You always balance with the subsidies. I'm not sure the labor cost is way lower than in Europe. I think it's sometimes it's even higher. The electricity price is higher. So frankly speaking, I don't have among those commodities, I don't have any competitive advantage anymore. So the consumer market is big, and it's a big argument for any foreigner investors to come to the country. But not on the production, on the cost side, not anymore. So, but within the EU, it's all been balanced by subsidies. We see how badly agriculture, like agriculture, steel, and all those traditional sectors are subsidized in the EU countries.
I have a quick question for you, Dmytro. We've been saying all day, right, that this is the most volatile period. It was volatile 6 months ago, a year ago, and you're trying to plan. You're chief strategy officer, and you're trying to make long-term plans in this type of environment. So first question is, what does the planning process, just in practical terms, what does that look like internally? And secondly, you're not a local domestic company, right? What does communication look like with corporate, with headquarters, amid this planning process?
Indeed, this is a good question. So let's put in this way. Speaking about the beginning of war back in 2022, I could not say we were not prepared, because well ahead of the full-scale invasion, we start thinking. I'm personally, as a chief strategy officer, start evaluate all the risk, and we make some steps, let's say, ahead of the potential invasion. But as many people in Ukraine, and not the scale of the invasion was absolutely unpredictable. We were thinking what something would happen in the eastern part of Ukraine, probably in Crimea, maybe in some south, but nobody can even imagine when in a 3 day Russian troops would be in the Kiev region. And nobody was prepared for that, yeah? Because when we plan our network resilience, we move some part of the critical equipment from eastern part to Kiev, from Kharkiv, but still that was unpredictable. And of course, in such condition, your usual, let's say, moving business as a going concern was absolutely inefficient. And that's since the first shock, after a couple of days, we established, so we call it war room. Yeah, and what we do, we are plan in very short sprint. Yeah, and instead of having a, let's say, full year budget, we make a rolling forecast. We make a forecast for each, let's say, couple of weeks or months, what we will do, what we will expect in the rest of couple of months, and that's actually how we operate almost all during the year 2022. And only in the middle of 2023 we'll come back to the classical strategic planning cycle when we are planning year ahead with a more or less, let's say, probability. And then in 2024 we start looking on the 3-year cycle. Yeah. But what has happened? What has changed dramatically? Before the war condition, we always look at the macroeconomic, let's say, forecast, like standard thing as every business in Ukraine are doing. Yeah, the GDP, CPI, unemployment rate, blah blah blah. Usual thing which is to allow your business to understand economic landscape for the next couple of years. But what we've done now, we find itself not only, let's say, as an expert in the macroeconomical forecast, but we also need to in a major part of our, let's say, forecasting, we need to forecast geopolitical landscape, because that become a vital and important part of your strategic planning. For us, that's definitely the case. The major part of our strategic planning dedicated to the geopolitical development, and we have base scenario, we have worst scenario, but this is. It's not influenced so much before the war, but now it's become a, let's say, huge part of the strategic planning job, which we're doing on the yearly basis.
And just very quickly, communication with headquarters, I mean, their level of support. How do you communicate what's happening on the ground here versus what they see?
We have, of course, we have a usual, let's say, regular supervisory board meeting, and we have an executive committee meeting, which is more or less, let's say, we have it every month, I would say. But during the wartime, that way don't work. We just have a right to call directly to our shareholders at the moment we will need their support. And they was actually very supportive. Yeah, and only just to add a bit more flavor. So only after 2 weeks of the full-scale invasion, we unfreeze all investment program and start build Japan network, start build our new sites and so on. So that's thanks to we have convinced our shareholder, and they was fully on our side, starting from the conflict. And this is we are lucky what we have more or less simplified structure of corporate governance. We have only board and shareholder, which is allow us to be more flexible and agile, I would say.
Great. Is any questions?
Volodymyr Monastyrsky, International Law Firm Dentons. There is a lot of talk about, big pot of money, foreign money, which would be invested into Ukraine, but I never come across with more or less meaningful, reliable analysis showing how much money Ukraine, private foreign money, Ukraine can digest per year. It's not a secret that we have problem with people, so the consumption level is low. We do not have much workforce. It would be difficult, if ever possible, to find the right person for the job. We have the problem with the electricity. Plus, we have a nice group of people who want to become rich. Tax authority, state investigation bureau, prosecutor's office. In between them, there is a economic department of SBU. Then we have local police, customs office.
We know this.
Igor is going to be your answer.
The list gets long.
Yeah. so I'm a lawyer, not investor. But my best guess, not educated guess, would be that Ukraine cannot consume more than $5 billion or euro, doesn't matter, per year. So can you please surprise me that you have that Ukraine has more, capacity more than 5 billions per year? Thank you.
No, I think the country can easily, it will digest as much as you bring, so don't worry about that. We're experiencing, as I said, $40 billion each year in the direct budget support from the Western allies. I'm afraid, this amount will go down significantly. I don't know, even a quarter of that would mean like it's less than $10 billion, which is a huge money, and hopefully it will be substituted by private money. However, $10 billion in private money, still is going to take a lot of time to to convince for any foreign investor to be convinced to invest here. So I think we'll have a hard times the several years after the war ends, post-war. I think we'll run through the hard times. So I'm not that optimistic about that, by the way.
Igor, very like hot topic right now. I believe your cement company, besides your cement company, you guys have a few quarries that mine in lime, right? And I found that information. I don't know. Am I wrong? But the point is, what do you think about the mineral deal that United States and Ukraine has been, going back and forth? Do we actually have something to offer the United States, or it was just
political
process?
You know what? I'm invested in a number of resource companies. One of those is Ember Burштyn, well known. For example, when I bought this, the license from the government. I bought it from a private company, but the agency, the governmental agency, which had the valuation of this deposit, they claimed there is a 24-something grams per cubic meter of ground in there. The reality turned out to be 8, so it's like 3 times less. Another story is I had a gas business, gas exploration field, and the same thing. I just sold it because there is a gas. There was a gas. There is a gas. But unfortunately, we do not have any access to the technology to extract the gas. So it's a non-traditional gas shelf, and simply it's only U.S. and Canada. Those two countries, they would have the technology to bring it up to the surface. And simply, the technical personnel from those countries could not come to Ukraine because they don't have any health insurance, to come to Ukraine. So, and then we had to sell it, and of course, we see, how much Ukraine produces in gas and in oil and some other different materials, but it's more. I think my perception is rather a PR transaction so the one guy is selling something to the local market, the another guy is selling something to the local market, by the way. Yeah. So,
but we understand for Trump, he tries to sell or justify the billions of dollars he's spending on Ukraine. He needs to guys, I'm not like...
I didn't waste this money, and I'll bring it back. So, this is a message.
That's the message. But, I mean, from our side, we understand, okay, how our people think, how can you give it to these people or to these people? But, how about, first of all, we talk about something we not exactly know what it's in the ground. That's the old assessments of 80s, 90s, I believe. Secondly, can you imagine how much money we need to bring the expertise, equipment to actually extract those minerals? If we as Ukraine have failed that to do over the last 30 years, maybe it's a good thing just to have the foreign companies to come and extract. Any thoughts?
Andrew, well, you answered a question, by the way, but I wanted to tell you that was the best promotion of the country and of the industry. So the top guy in the world, is claiming, oh, it's so rich in minerals, in oil and gas, and
we're like, no.
It's not like. I have to tell you, I was in the U.S. 2 weeks ago, and I was on my way from the airport to Houston, which is the global capital of oil industry, by the way.
Right.
And that was one of the reasons I went there. The day before they, stepped down from this mineral deal. The driver, taxi driver, he's a guy who 30 years ago left Iran. He escaped Iran and came to the U.S. So he was probably in his 50s or something, and he was, oh, you're from Ukraine. Oh, tell me. And the first question was, oh, tell me about this deal, by the way. Are there any minerals? Is it the deal fair or not fair? Or they want to, screw you? So the number of questions, more very detailed questions from a taxi driver. Well, in Houston, but from a taxi driver, and of course. The professional investors, all those Halliburtons and Schlumberger and all those Exxon Mobils and stuff, they know the deal. They know it's that would take years and billions or maybe tens of billions of dollars to get to the stage where you can seriously discuss something. But for normal people, even non-professional investors, this is the best deal ever. Yeah. So I think we'll benefit from such a promotion in some time. I'm pretty much sure. The guys who are sitting on, by the way, and still, they're calculating their future money now because the steel price is gonna double and triple because of that. I hope so.
Yeah, let's keep the Trump advertise Ukraine. Hopefully, we're gonna find the common ground to agree to this deal.
Unfortunately, in the resource sector, in the last 15 years, I saw the same situation. The strategic investor, they are leaving the country. Well, they are not getting in; they're getting out. So this is this is part of the answer, by the way. But no taxes, no people employed, no technology, no capital, nothing. No equipment, no fixed assets. That's it. However, having said that, it's a good time for us, and maybe for you.
This is. I would confirm. This is the story. Igor heard the question from taxi driver in Houston. Yeah, 1 week ago I was in Barcelona. There was a Mobile World Congress, the biggest event in industry, which happened every year. I heard the same question when the waiters know when I am from Ukraine. They all, oh, what is going with the mineral deal? This was very funny.
But look, I would like to comment.
So the price for diamonds would go down. She said.
Just tell you. But what's interesting? Taxi drivers is a special category of people. When you get in the taxi in Ukraine, he was like, by the way, I'm not a taxi driver. I have a business. And he gives you like a business plan or something like that.
Ukrainian people are very entrepreneurial. So,
Yeah, that's true. Guys, any questions? Please, a round of applause to our speakers. Guys, thank you so much. Thank you for your time.